So today we're going to work with vertex form of quadratic equations. Let's see what we're going to do. We want to review how to graph and identify the key parts in vertex form, and then more specifically today we're going to learn how to create or write the vertex form of an equation. For your vocabulary, again, this is just a review of the needed formulas and parts of the quadratic equation that relate to vertex form, where HK is your vertex, coming from the vertex form of the equation. Let's begin just with our review of how to graph something that's given to us in vertex form. Here is vertex form, and if you can remember, HK is your vertex. Most of us learn something like change H, keep K. So we would write that the vertex of this particular quadratic would be -6, -2. Change the H value that as you look at it and keep the K value. Once you have that vertex, you also have the axis of symmetry. Remember, that is just the X value of the vertex. And then let's go ahead and graph that vertex point, -6, -2. There's the vertex. We can look at A is 1/2 and know that this one opens up. The axis of symmetry is the dotted line, so it splits in half right there at the value x equals -6. And then use either a graphing calculator or plug in points by hand, or you could even find the y-intercept first and graph the rest of the equation. Quickly, I will not write them all out, but here's some of the points I found on the calculator. -8, which is not going to show up on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -8, 0 is on the graph, as well as -4, 0, and that's good enough. There were some other points in between, like a -7, -1.5, and you have what you need to draw the parabola. Okay, so our main objective today is to learn how to write the equation in vertex form if we're given some information. So in this particular problem, it says it wants us to write the vertex form if we know that the quadratic's minimum value is -4, -8, and it passes through another point, -2, 5. So a minimum value, if you'll think with me, would mean that that parabola opened up, and a minimum value would be its vertex. So we have a vertex of -4, -8, which means we have an H and a K value. Let's write out the vertex formula and see what else we might be missing. Okay, we just said we have a H and a K value, so let's write it with our given H and K in there, and then go from there and see what we're missing. So x change h, if h is -4, let's write x plus 4, quantity squared, plus k would be a -8 in this situation. Okay, from there, we need to, if you remember from intercept form, we need to solve for a now. So if we need to find a, then we have numbers in every spot except for the y and the x. But let's look at those, let's underline those, and here we go. We can put that in for x and that in for y, because those are values on the graph. So let's rewrite it now with -2 for x and 5 for y. That would be 5 equals a, that's what we're going to solve for. X is -2 plus 4, quantity squared, -8. You want to do your math carefully, just follow the correct order of operations, and it's not too hard at all. -2 plus 4 is a +2 squared. If you are doing it on the calculator, remember your parentheses, because squaring a negative, for instance, if you had a negative there, would come out wrong on your calculator if you do not use the parentheses. I'm going to run out of room, so I'll have to go to the other side. 5 equals, let's do correct order of operations, exponents next. 2 squared is 4, so let's call that 4a minus 8. Continue with your two-step equation that you have now and solve for a. You want to add 8 to both sides, divide by 4, and you'll have a is 13/4. Now that sounds awful, but that is okay. We can leave it just like that. We are almost done now, because if we go back to the original vertex form of the equation, or better yet, go to the second line where you already had in the appropriate hk from the vertex. You can write a final equation. Now this time around you would want to plug in for a and then h and k, which is already there. So you'd write y equals a, which is 13/4, parentheses, x plus 4 squared, quantity squared, minus 8. There's the vertex form of your equation. Something you can do here, since it's new to you, if you have a graphing calculator, you could by all means put this equation into your graphing calculator, go look at the picture, go check on the table, and make sure you do see that vertex, and also you could check that it does cross through the point -2,5. That's a good way to know you're correct. Let's go through one more example. It's the exact same process, so that's all this really is practice. Begin by writing your vertex form of the equation. This is your vertex, so that's your h and k. This is another point, so we'll use it as x and y. Write your equation with your h and k in there is always a good start. So x minus h would be x plus 6, quantity squared, minus 8. Now we'd like to plug in the x and y that we have also, and we have everything so that we can solve for a. 1 equals a -5 plus 6, all squared, minus 8. Please do correct order of operations. Once again, be very careful about that. This is a 1, excuse me, that looks like a negative, but it's not. Positive 1 squared is 1, so together that becomes 1a minus 8 equals 1. Finish off your algebra steps and you'll end up with 9 equals 1a, so a has a value of 9. You're done with the work now. Now preferably go back to where you already have h and k in your equation and rewrite the vertex form and you'll be finished. Y equals, we now have an a value, 9 x plus 6 quantity squared minus 8. There's the vertex form of your equation. That's the end of our lesson, because thankfully these are so easy because every problem seems to work exactly the same. So if you have any more questions, go back and rewatch the video, watch some of our additional resources, or of course ask anyone you can for help, whether it's a teacher or a friend or someone else. Thanks a lot.